If you're interested in key advice for starting meal prepping, or you're just curious about my own meal prep journey and the process I follow to make it all come to life week after week, then keep watching this video. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Lisa, a preventative health pro, recent Masters of Public Health Nutrition graduate from NYU, and I've been a personal trainer in New York City for over 5 years, working with clients to reach their health and fitness goals. Welcome to my meal prep perspective. There's actually so much more to meal prep than initially meets the eye. Every week, I'll share my own meal prep process along with my insight, tips, and the advice that I wish I had when I started meal prepping. I love answering your questions, so ask away in the comment section. The first thing I'll get started this week is lunch, and we're making hearty bean soup in the Instant Pot. So far in this video, I've sauteed my ground turkey directly in my Instant Pot, removed it, and now I'm sauteing my mirepoix. I also added some extra onions and a whole head of garlic that I chopped really fine. Next, I'll deglaze my pan with some vegetable broth from Kettle and Fire. I'll add in just a bit of the broth, stir it up, and really work to get those brown bits off the bottom of my pan. Especially when you use the Instant Pot, you don't want any burned food on the bottom, or the Instant Pot will actually stop cooking in the middle and say, food burn, but I definitely don't know this from experience. Haha, nervous laugh. Moral of the story, deglaze your pan very well if you're doing this in the Instant Pot. So for me, I like to just add a little bit of the broth, then add the rest once I know the pan is deglazed. So I'll add the rest of that broth, and then I'll add some pepper, and I'll add back my ground turkey. I'll give it a quick stir, then I'll add in the star of the soup, my beans. I'm starting off with drained and rinsed chickpeas, give that a stir, and then I'll add in my other beans, which are kidney beans, pinto beans, and white beans. So I'll give that a big stir, and I also decided to cut up a sweet potato and add that in here too. As I stir this up, you can really see the different colors. Different colors means different nutrients, so we love that from a nutritional perspective. I'll add another container of vegetable broth, which will take me right up to the max fill line. Then I'll follow with some red pepper flakes and lots of cumin. This is a really simple soup, so it doesn't need a ton of other seasonings, and I found that these are just really nice seasonings. It's got tons of flavor, have all that onion, all that garlic from before too, good olive oil. It makes all the difference in the world in the flavor. We'll get the lid on, get the timer set for an hour on high, and then we'll be off to other meal prep things. Another note here, I always move my where the steam is going to come out while it's cooking, so it's not directly under my kitchen cabinet. So hot tip there, quite literally. So now we'll get started with dinner. We're making another soup because my oven igniter stopped working. Gotta love that. I called to check that I could still use the stovetop because that was still working just fine. The igniter on the stovetop was working, just not the oven. So making it work while we wait for the oven repair technician. So the start of this soup is almost the exact same as the start of the other soup. Olive oil, then browning the ground turkey, pulling it out of the pan, adding back more olive oil, adding in diced onions, giving that a big stir. Next, we'll add some salt and really let these onions sweat it out here. You've seen the way I add salt in. This is I give it a little shimmy shake before I go to pour it in. That way I don't I have to put my hand in or accidentally pour the entire container of salt into what I'm making. So now that my onions are browned, I'll add in some garlic here, and yum, looking good. Next, we'll add some tomato paste. It's always so hard to add it in one-handed, y'all. I'm sorry, I'm working on it. I want to be able to see what I'm doing, but it's kind of hard one-handed sometimes. So I'll get that stirred in here, and I'm also going to add in some water that'll help deglaze the pan too. And also, you know, that tomato paste is super concentrated. So we'll get to work here really scraping along the bottom so I can get all the flavor, all those brown bits off the bottom. And once that's in a good spot, we'll add back that ground turkey. We'll give it a stir, and also note this could easily be eliminated if you wanted to make this a vegetarian meal. Same thing with the other soup too, actually. I had some frozen basil. I bought a bunch of basil and I didn't use it all for something. So I had all of this and it was frozen. So while it was still frozen, I really squished it up, and that seemed to really do the trick instead of having to try to chop frozen basil. Also added a can of whole tomatoes, and once I poured it in, there was still some sauce remaining in there. So I used some of the vegetable broth to get all that saucy goodness out of here. And I am making soup, so it makes sense, right? So I'll add the other broth, and now I've really got all the sauce out of that jar, and we want every little bit. So now that we've got the remainder of that broth in there, we're gonna give it a stir and we're gonna let it simmer for a bit. We're gonna really let all the flavors melt together. It's gonna be so delicious. So lid on, turn the heat down to low, and I also like to wipe off. I made a little bit of a mess, so I'm wiping off my pan now. All right, 2 meals going. I'm gonna get started on breakfast. I'm gonna add these bananas into my blender cup off camera. Sorry guys, so hard to do one-handed. I'm adding in some cinnamon, then some nutmeg. I'll also add some clove, and I'll get the lid on and get this blended up. This is gonna be the flavor base for my overnight oats, and honestly, it's just, overnight oats are just so easy, and if I'm tired, that's what I'm making for breakfast, you can bet. I had some honey left in this very large container, so I added some water in to just get every little last bit out. I decided to add that in here too, so I'll give that another blend. And while that was blending, the timer for my Instant Pot went off, so I'm gonna release the steam. See how it's not going directly under my kitchen cabinet? Yep, that's intentional. So we're blended here, beautiful. I decided I also wanted to add some healthy fats into this, so I decided to blend up almonds in here too. So I just added a couple handfuls and I'm gonna put it onto the blender. You can see right away how quickly the almonds get chopped up. I was worried they might be in larger chunks, but they got chopped down pretty stinking fine. So that's exactly what I wanted. So perfect, that's ready and waiting for breakfast. I'm gonna jump back to dinner. I had these lasagna noodles and I decided I was gonna use them in here instead of using pasta. So I just broke them up and just broke them up into little pieces. Got some help from the hubby for this camera angle. Thanks, babe. So much easier than trying to do this one-handed, and then that way too you guys don't miss out on the process. So I broke all of these up into little pieces. Definitely, side note is I would make sure to definitely separate them as you toss them in so that they don't stick together. I'll keep breaking these up here, and while I do that, I know you all were asking for more information and more of my entire process from start to finish, so that is in the works. I've got something really big coming your way, not only a video, but also an ebook. So I'm working on that. It's almost finished. I'm excited to share with you guys. And next, we'll very carefully remove the Instant Pot lid. As you remember, I already released all the pressure, but I always open it very cautiously. So hot liquids, caution. I set the lid aside and look at all this beautiful colors. Oh, lovely. Love it. Lots of protein, lots of nutrients. I'm also taking a minute, kind of smush all the beans up, looking fabulous. And now I'm gonna add some Tuscan kale. I love these bagged Tuscan kales. It seriously makes it so much easier than trying to, de-rib all of this kale, but I love Tuscan kale. I was very lucky to study abroad in Florence in my undergrad experience, and I think that's where I fell in love with Tuscan kales. I love adding it to soups, and especially with these bags, I always keep an eye out if there's any pieces that aren't as fresh looking as others, so generally these are really helpful and a great time saver. And now I'll work to mix in the remainder of this bag of kale, and I'll just kind of add it in, stir it. As I add it in, it will definitely cook down a little bit, so it's still really hot. And we'll let this cool off and we'll jump back to our other meals. So we'll take the lid off, we'll get this stirred, seeing how cooked these noodles are. I really wasn't sure how long to cook them. I was kind of just looking to see how translucent they were. And when in doubt, I'll give a little taste test to a noodle to see if it's cooked. And definitely sometimes when I meal prep, I don't cook them all the way. Definitely leave them al dente. I'm Italian, I mean, come on. Now we'll add in some peas to add just some more vegetables, some more nutrients, some more texture, flavor. Whether you're new here or you've been along on the meal prep ride with me for a while now, you probably see me add so many frozen vegetables, and I love frozen vegetables. They really make fresh produce really accessible. So this is done. I'm gonna put the lid back on, keep it warm, and I'm gonna start making my breakfast. Well, really it's just assembling my breakfast since I already started the process earlier with the bananas. I'm making overnight oats, so this is really just more of an assembly line than really a lot of cooking. But right now, this week,
That is exactly what I needed. Quick, easy, simple. So I got my oats down, and now I'll add some shelled hemp seeds, and these are really lovely because they add a really nice texture. If you haven't tried them before, they kind of have like a nutty flavor. The texture is just really nice, so I like that, especially with the oats that, you know, are kind of like mushy, but these are not. They add some crunch, and they remain crunchy even in the overnight oat situation. I've got my banana mixture from earlier. I'm going to portion it out into my cups, and since this is really a concentrated, you know, mix, I'm just going to add a scoop or two to give it some flavor. This way I'll fill the cups the rest of the way with water, and this way I also cut down on the cost and the calories if that matters to you. But this way I can still get that flavor, that banana flavor, so it's not like just eating plain oatmeal, because I don't know if there's anything more torturous than that for me. I just like more flavor. So this is the way to get the best of both worlds here. So I'll portion it out. Sometimes that means going back and adding more to the cups once I've everyone's had some of the mixture in there. So I'll do that, and then I'll refill the cup with water and pour that in here too. And while I continue with that, I'll answer one of the questions I was asked about how I got started working out and the tips that I share with those who are just getting started working out. So for context, I work in the health and fitness industry. I'm a personal trainer, and I have been for quite some time now. And I recognize we all have different challenges to overcome, but I think the best way to get started working out is to start small. So start with an amount of time that makes sense for you. Maybe that's only a few minutes to begin with, and eventually that builds into 20 minutes, then 30 minutes, etc., etc. And I could talk about this all day. The important part is really about building something you can sustain. If you cannot sustain working out for an hour 6 times a week, but you're holding yourself to that standard temporarily, and then you're stopping altogether because it doesn't fit your lifestyle, it's not actually helpful. I've seen this time and time again, and it's part of the vicious cycle of starting then stopping that really crushes people.
So to stay on theme, do what works for you and what makes sense for you. And I'm also happy to keep talking about this. I could really talk about this all day long. And sometimes I do. If you're one of my clients, you already know that. What's more helpful and better for your overall health in the long run is to work to establish a relationship with fitness that you can sustain and that you can enjoy. I know that really goes against the grain of what the fitness industry is always selling to us, and it could be controversial, but I also know that momentum builds for clients, and especially for people that are working to establish a relationship with exercise and fitness. That's why I always recommend starting with a digestible amount of fitness, one that you can do consistently over time, because consistency beats intensity every time. And also why I recommend thinking about yourself as someone who's active and then letting your actions follow what an active person would do. This is a really common behavior change strategy that you could literally apply to anything, even meal prep. And when someone asks me about meal prep, how to get started, that's also what I recommend for that too. It's like if you know that you can meal prep breakfast, then start with breakfast. Make your breakfast every day for, the week. And then the following week, maybe that makes sense for you. You still want to just keep doing breakfast. Then the week after that, you make breakfast and a few lunches, and you figure out what strategy is going to be the most helpful for you. It's truly, that's anything in life. If we think about doing every single thing all at once, it can feel super overwhelming, and then we don't always start because it just feels like way too much. So if we just do a little bit and we do what we know we can do consistently and what we can keep showing up for ourselves, then we're going to overall have more success. So we really don't have to be in an all or nothing mindset. And now we're getting into something that I could do an entire dissertation on. Truly. Definitely let me know in the comment section if you want me to keep elaborating on all of these things, on fitness, on all or nothing mindset, on getting started, on behavior change. Of course, I'll keep talking about meal prep because that's my thing, but I find that all of them are really interconnected, and I think the root of all of them is behavior change. So happy to keep talking about that, but let me know in the comments if that would be helpful for you. That's what I'm here for. And on that note too, thank you all so much for commenting, making suggestions, sharing feedback. I really want to make content that is helpful. If you like the music, you don't like the music, I want to know, because I want this to be helpful for everyone. Or what's the point? Like, I want this to help people. So tell me how I can better help you. And I promise, I will share recipes. I'm working on it. I'm gonna get there.
I promise y'all. I'm gonna get there. Speaking of getting there, we are right at the end of meal prep. You saw that I also added a container of ricotta cheese into the lasagna soup. And honestly, if I would have had cottage cheese, I would have done that, but I had ricotta. So we went with ricotta, but incredible, so delicious. And yay, we're done. Another week set up for success. I don't have to think about what I'm cooking during the week. I don't have to clean the kitchen every single day. Thanks so much for joining me and wishing you a wonderful week ahead. Take care.